Good enough. Moving on to disc brake swap. We're finished up with the exhaust system. Now we're moving on to the front suspension. This suspension design is going to be pretty typical of anything you're going to find in the Mopar muscle car era. On the B body specifically, you're looking at 1962 up to about 1972. 1973, they had a pretty significant change in the design of like the rubber bushings that mount the K-member and the disc brakes and things like that. And we're going to take advantage of those later model parts in order to put disc brakes on this thing. Here's the problem. This car, as a Belvedere, I think it was a slant 6 originally, and so it's got small drum brakes on it. This is a 10-inch diameter drum. If you ordered a Hemi car with drum brakes new from the factory, it would have had an 11-inch brake on the front. And even that, honestly, by modern standards, you would rather have disc brakes on it. Here's how I'm gonna do that. I got a kit from a company called Right Stuff that I buy through summitracing.com, and that came with the rotor, the caliper and pads, and the spindle, and the caliper mounting bracket that are of that like 1973 up to mid-70s design, so that you can put those disc brakes on the earlier car. Now, I'm also going to be changing the upper control arm. You're able to buy a complete loaded reproduction upper control arm now. Comes with new bushings and ball joints, so that's going to be an upgrade for me. With all of that in hand, the last thing that I need in order to make this easy is the lower ball joint. I was able to run down to AutoZone and tell them, hey, I've got a 69 Roadrunner, and they had the Duralast part that I needed right there in stock. Now, the reason I'm going to be changing the lower ball joint is, check this out. I'm gonna be able to remove the whole drum brake assembly simply by removing the upper control arm bolts, taking off the tie rod ends, undoing the brake hose, and then undoing the stud on the ball joint, and then poof, that whole thing is gonna hit the ground. Otherwise, I would have had to take apart the whole drum assembly to get at the bolts that hold the lower ball joint in order to disassemble it. So it's just way faster and easier to disassemble it at the stud rather than at the mounting bolts. And it'll also leave Steve with a nice 10-inch drum brake assembly sitting around in his backyard for pretty much eternity.
I was able to hammer it in perfectly, David. David's got to pack the wheel bearings. Luckily, it's not me because I'm not going to get grease all over my hands, but I will get to work on removing the master cylinder. Now, right now, while it's firmly secure to the firewall, I'm going to try to wrench off those super tight brake lines that are going into it, and then it's under the dash to remove 4 nuts, which is not going to be pleasant, but that should get it loose, although the push rod's going to be stuck in the back of the master, but I'm hoping I can pry it out of the back of the master with a big crowbar and a 2x4. Well, that wasn't too stuck. I gotta knock the studs out of it next.
Last step on assembly, put the brake hose on.
What I have is the new master cylinder. You might notice it doesn't look like the old one because this is a little bit later model of the setup, but it's got the same bolt pattern. It should interchange pretty well. So I'm just gonna push this through the firewall, attach the brake lines, and then I'm gonna go underneath and try to get those fasteners tightened. Yesterday, we got the whole exhaust system complete, which is pretty good, except we forgot to put the bung in for the O2 sensor, so that's gonna be coming up. We've got the brake system installed, new front discs, and new master. The thing we have to do now is the tedious process of bleeding the brakes. David, wiki.
I'm bleeding already.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, man, I thought you were snoozing already.
Nope, I'm pushing fluid through.
Oh, you are? That's fantastic. Ready?
Yep.
Down.
Down.
It's working. Up.
Up.
How high can you go? Down.
How high can I go down?
No, I mean, when you repeat up, I wonder how high you can go, like what note you can hit.
Or
would you be as awesome as Steve Perry of Journey?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Up.
It's been up.
Oh, down?
Down.
Okay, that was Steve Tyler. Now Steve Perry. Up. That was good. That was really good. What I want to do next is rework the steering column because we're moving on to doing some interior dress up. You might have noticed the steering column's blue. I don't like that. It doesn't match the rest of the interior. It's got two shifters. It's got the floor shifter for the manual transmission, and it has the other shifter for the automatic. I'm going to eliminate all that, and then I'm going to rework the column to make it look like it was an original manual transmission column. The first step's going to be knocking out the roll pin here under the hood, and then unbolting it from inside the car and pulling it out.
Okay, Steve, make it black.
I'm gonna make this beautiful.
I just handed Steve the steering column. He's gonna go restore that thing. Interestingly, this car was originally a 3-speed manual shift on the column. So is that column that I just handed Steve, although it wasn't the original column from this car, strangely enough. So I've got my clutch pedals. I have my 4-speed. I also have a gaping hole in my floor. That was done before we got the car. As a matter of fact, it was done before Performance Auto up in Wyoming even got the thing. So it's my job to fix it, which I'm gonna do with this piece right here, which is from Metal Direct, AMD. They sell that hump that is just like the factory piece that they put in the 4-speed cars. The problem is there is still big mangling going on over here. Somebody really overhacked the hole size. I think what I'm going to do is first install this factory type hump and then come back and patch in that area that needs so much help. The good news is it's also going to be covered with carpet, so I can butcher this and nobody will ever know.